What's up, guys? Coming at you from Shenzhen, this time doing a drive around again, finally getting out of the house. I've been cooped up in there for so long, and I got to go to my brew pub to pick something up. Truth be told, I'm just picking up a growler of beer. I need an excuse to just drive around a bit and get out. But first things first, let me flip the camera around so you can see the neighborhood. And while I am out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive by a neighborhood called Baishizhou, my old neighborhood, because I heard from a friend that it's been blocked off, that they had some confirmed cases in there. So let's go over there and take a look. So right now I'm in Nanshan, close to the Shenzhen Bay Bridge area, and we will drive up to the Baishizhou area, like I mentioned. So what's going on here, there were a few more confirmed cases. It was either 7 or 9, so it was more than the previous day, but still keeping it under 10, which is good. And elsewhere, it looks like the numbers are tapering off a little bit. It seems like the efforts are really being put into high gear now to really just cut this off. I mean, one of the things I did was I reached out to a bunch of my friends in Wuhan, as I have been before, but I thought of a couple of others. I thought, let me contact these guys. One of the questions I've always asked anybody who's anywhere near there is, do you know anyone personally who's been infected? Because, if these numbers with, whatever the numbers are now, like 250,000 people infected, or I don't know what the crazy numbers are people are saying are the real numbers, what they think the real numbers are. Just by law of averages, after I ask a certain number of people, I must be able to find at least a few who know somebody firsthand. So the first guy, the two guys I spoke to last night and this morning, they also own brew pubs in Wuhan. And I thought, okay, these guys, they're around a lot of people, they have employees, they've got lots of customers, they must know somebody. So the first guy, who's in the center of the city, no, he doesn't know anybody personally. He's kind of staying at home, and I said, how do you feel, what's going on? He says, honestly, we don't know, we just know we're supposed to stay at home, and all we can do is just listen to the news and see what people are saying on WeChat and stuff like that. So in many regards, they probably know as much as we do outside of Wuhan here in China. Then there's another guy who also does brewing on the outskirts of Wuhan. He's not really in the city center. So as of today, they all have to stay home, and they're going to arrange to deliver food for them and stuff like that, but they're not allowed to go out. And that's why I said it sounds like they're really upping their efforts and saying, let's cut this off. Enough is enough. So just we need that 14-day period where nobody is getting cross-infected or whatever it is. And actually, let me go straight here. And he was the first person I found finally who knows somebody firsthand who has coronavirus. And it was one of his ex-employees. He's not in contact with him now. He says he was moved into the larger hospital, the one of the temporary ones that was built, those ones that were built really quick. And so he's in there. So out of all of these people who do business and who have many customers, I found one. It's encouraging also to know that he was sent to the hospital and he has a bed, because that's the one thing that everybody's saying also, is that there's no space for anybody. And there were, if you looked at some of the videos and pictures that people were using, it'd be easy to believe that. So that was encouraging to know. And this is apparently a pretty, a relatively new case. But that's what you got to keep in mind with all these pictures and videos. These pictures and videos, for example, the guy I was speaking about yesterday, Solomon Yu, he put a video of an old couple holding hands in a hospital. They were both on hospital beds. It's a video from 2 years ago, and it's in Chengdu. It's not even in Wuhan. But you get this over and over and over again, people repurposing videos. And I get a lot of people sending me private messages saying, what do you think of this video? What do you think of that video? And I just can't really get to them. I used to do that during the Hong Kong protests. I used to debunk videos and debunk these things like, what were some of them? So for example, there was in Yuanlong, there was a car that was smashed and searched. Only one car. Every other car was okay. There was one car that was smashed and searched. And they opened up the trunk and they found PLA military gear in there. A sword, like, I don't know if it was a PLA officer from the distant past, and a hat, a military hat. I'm like, guys, are you guys serious? And it was going like all over the news here. I'm like, they only searched one car, and then look at the hat. That's a PLA hat that's been out of circulation since the 80s. So really, is this some sort of a time-traveling soldier? And then there was there were so many others. There was when they cut down those smart lampposts and they said the Bluetooth receiver was from a Shanghai company that has ties to the government. No, you can look it up. It was from a Hong Kong company. All of the directors and all the owners were Hong Kongers. And just over and over and over. Or the one where they said that the police kicked a yellow object, which was actually a human. Also that one, I took the video, I zoomed it in, and I said, guys, he's not using his foot. He didn't actually kick him, and he just nudged his hand into place for arresting, while they're arresting him. And then I gave up. I just didn't do it anymore because, first of all, the flow of these fake videos is nonstop. And when you do debunk them, nothing valuable actually happens. What ends up happening, I found, was that the people who always were a little bit suspicious, they were just like, yeah, I thought so. But the people who were relying on those fake videos to make their point, they don't change. There are a few, but the reward is not significant enough to want to expend time on something like that. However, I will say there are some videos I've seen which are very concerning. I saw one yesterday and I retweeted it and I said, I don't care what the excuse is for this. This is totally unacceptable. And it was a guy being, locked in his apartment forcefully. Of course, they're still going to come by and give the food and everything they need. But I was like, that. Even the guy, he was saying, what if there's an emergency? And the government guy was just like, well, just make sure you're careful. I was like, what the heck? And when I posted it, no conditions, I said, this is unacceptable. I don't care what the excuse is. Now, there are some people who try to give some context to it, saying that this could be somebody who is continually trying to circumvent quarantine requirements, even though he was potentially exposed to the virus. Or it could be a meat seller who's still illegally selling meat, and you don't want to put these guys cooped up in a jail right now with each other, particularly if they're at risk of coronavirus and then spreading it with other people. So it's almost like house arrest or something like that. I still don't care. I think it's unacceptable. And so I'm willing to call these things out, but a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, there's going to be a lot of fake stuff out there. And second of all, there's potentially some context behind it. But in the case of that context that I was talking about, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I still think that's pretty appalling. And I think that's why you get some of these provincial governments, they're bringing these notices out. They're bringing out documents where they're telling the local smaller governments, guys, don't encroach on the people's rights like this. Don't go too far. And it's probably a tricky job for the local governments because they're also going to be held accountable for any spreads or lack of progress. And then now, obviously, the other side, they've got to balance being criticized for going a little bit too far. And in that video, it does look like they went too far, in my opinion. So those are some things to keep in mind. Continuing on the topic of the ulterior motive guys. So the ulterior motive guys like Kyle Bass I was talking about yesterday. After I finished recording that video, there was an article that came out in Bloomberg that talked about him, how he just recently deleted a tweet where he was basically wishing for the coronavirus to spread across all of China. I mean, he said in the CCP party, but the CCP party is like, what is it, like millions of members, including the student youth leagues and stuff like that. And he deleted it, but he refuses to apologize. And this is just the kind of guy he is. Let me go straight up this way. So the other guy that people are asking about is Miles Guo. Guo Wangwei, I think is his Chinese name. This guy I can't believe he's back on the scene. So he'll just come up with some BS. He'll disappear for a little while, hope people forget about it, and then comes back. And he's a guy who's desperate for attention. If you don't believe me, look at the Vice documentary. I clipped some of it together and put it on my Twitter. I'll share the link with you. And he used to focus on tabloid kind of sexual gossip news, and he's been sued a few times for it. And then he changed his targets towards the Chinese government, and he's really good friends with Steve Bannon. And all of these guys who kind of buddy up with Steve Bannon and Mike and John Bolton, they seem to all have pretty similar agendas. You know, Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong, who's from Apple Daily, he's the owner of Apple Daily. He buddied up with these guys long ago, and he's the one who's been posting kind of xenophobic stuff in his newspapers since 2012, calling mainlanders locusts and really trying to rile up these tensions between the local Cantonese population and mainland tourist visitors or immigrants. And also the political parties he sponsors in Hong Kong, like the Civic Party. You should see what some of the Civic Party district councillors say. Really racist stuff, talking about being really happy when... oh, did you guys see that? That guy almost went right out into the... Oh, I gotta straighten this camera. That guy riding the motorcycle almost went right up in front of those cars. Yeah, so what was I saying? The district council members were say some pretty despicable stuff, and they've all received funding from Jimmy Lai. And it makes you think a little bit. And there was somebody who picked up on this when I was talking about the story of Guyana and how the CIA went in and destabilized them, creating a racial war between the blacks and the Indians. And this is all declassified. And it seems like they're kind of like, you could almost think that they're dusting off their old playbook here and redoing it all again. And I didn't want to get into that in the last video, but somebody mentioned it in the comments when I mentioned the Guyana example. And they said, do you think they're doing that again in Hong Kong? But yes, I do, but I'm not going to get into that because that's going way off topic, and it's something I do want to talk about eventually. But on to the main topic where I went off on this way off topic was these guys. Look at what they're doing. The Miles Guan, he has an agenda against the mainland for a long time. There's a website, there's a Chinese website, I'll try to dig it up, where they list all of his predictions, all of the things that he said would come true. And there's tons of them. He doesn't stop, dozens of them, and 100% of them never came true. I confronted him on one of them on Twitter before. He said that Hong Kong was going to declare martial law on August 4th or something like that. He had a very specific date. And I called him out and I said, yeah, right, just like all of your other predictions. And he was like, you wait and see, we have inside information, we know what we're talking about. And then after that, I kept following up, like, hey, what's going on, guys? And then I even did it, I was kind of making fun of them. I posted a video of these soldiers walking really slowly. I said, oh, I think I found the problem. They're walking from Beijing. And this guy is a nut job. You just look him up. So what he's done is he's come back, and all of a sudden people who have no idea who Miles Guo is like, oh, wow, okay, we should listen to this guy. He's super rich. He came from China. He knows a lot of officials. So what he says must be fact. Now, look at people's agendas. And actually, that's true of me also. Look at me, and you see that I'm posting mostly positive China content. And you can look at me, and you can ask the same question. What's this guy's agenda? And if you feel my intentions are dishonest, take what I say, scrutinize what I say even more, and look it up, and see for yourself. That's what a lot of people aren't doing, is they just want to say, oh, okay, I think you have an agenda. It's like, okay, great. What's next? I'm not going to go, well, I mean, I have explained why I make videos before, but I never use it as a defense. I never, I don't need people to believe me. I just, I'd like people to listen to me, and then they can go off on their own and scrutinize it on their own. And I think my approach really exemplifies that. So for example, as I said before on Twitter, so many people, when I'm talking about China and Hong Kong, they're like, what would you know? And I never reply to them. He says, what would you know about China? Or why don't you just move to China? I never respond to them saying, I've been here for over 10 years. I've lived in Hong Kong. I'm a Hong Kong ID card holder also. I don't do that. Same reason why I don't do if somebody says, oh, you're a paid shill or whatever. Okay, great. I'm a paid shill. That's what you think? So what's next now? Do you have something to say against my argument? So I don't put a lot of focus on that. As a matter of fact, I could probably, I think I've taken a wrong turn here. I have. I gotta loop around. As a matter of fact, this village that I'm going to that is saying has been blocked off is a village where I used to live. And this actually flies in the face of what a lot of people say, which, let me try to straighten this. Because a lot of people say that like they look at my video. I didn't notice this until somebody pointed it out. But with my road trip video, they saw that a Bentley was parked beside my vehicle, and they're like, "Okay, what do you know? You're so out of touch with reality. Your view of China is coming from a place of privilege." And if people want to believe that, that's fine. But this is the first time I'm going to mention this, not to try to convince you to listen to me, but to explain that I don't put an undue effort on trying to tell you that you should listen to me. I could very easily come back and tell those people, For the first 3 years I was in China, I lived in this village that we're going to go to, Baishizhou, 7th floor, no elevator. The first 2 years I lived in China, no air conditioning. I don't know if anybody understands Hong Kong and Shenzhen weather. If you have ever experienced it, try to imagine what it's like to live without air conditioning. I had just a fan. And I'll explain to you why. I'll explain in another video why I was in that situation and why I did that. You know, I've spent time in Chinese villages. The guys who say that I spend my time driving around Shenzhen, literally a couple of weeks ago, I just finished a 4,000 kilometer road trip, and it's on my YouTube account, and I never ever respond to those. I never say, yeah, I am qualified, and you guys should really listen to what I have to say. No, you don't have to listen to what I say. Scrutinize what I say also. If you think I am a paid shill, there's nothing I can do to prove you wrong. And so just believe that. And now, okay, great. What's next? Do you have an actual argument? In regards to that too, there's a lot of things I don't, and maybe it would be beneficial for me to talk about some of that stuff more. But I don't want to make it seem like I really have. Well, yeah, because I don't have a vested interest in you believing me. I'm putting information out there, and you can decide what you want to do with it yourself. And I'm kind of taking a little bit of a different approach on some of those things, because I noticed something interesting happen not too long ago. Was I've done a bunch of charity, and I never mention it. I've never posted it on my social media, and I never talk about it, with the exception of a couple of them. So I'll give you an example. Like there was one thing I did, which was a huge effort. I flew to this country. I went to the villages. I gave away I don't want to say too much about what I did, because I feel like I always feel awkward talking about these things, because there's a lot of personal satisfaction from helping people. And I feel like when you post it online or you talk about it too much, it kind of diminishes its value, and it feels like it cheapens it. And I think perhaps I'm thinking about it wrong, because if some people actually do it with the intention to post it on social media and to show everybody else, this is what I did, I don't think I should really hate against that, because if that's what forces people to do good, at the end of the day, it's still a net positive, right? And there's a girl, an American girl, who's in, I don't know if it's in Wuxi or somewhere in Jiangsu, where she was posting. I'm not subscribed to her, but I saw one of her videos, and she was complaining about not being able to say what she wants in China. And this is why she's thinking of leaving China, because she could say the wrong thing and people could get upset. And I thought the video was a little bit dishonest, because it's like, well, that's the same is true for anywhere, especially in America now with cancel culture. You say the wrong thing, you're going to upset some people. And she was talking specifically about people, not government. But there was one thing she said that I really liked. And she said one of the reasons she started doing social media is to keep herself accountable. And that was a really interesting point for me, because that probably is true for a lot of people who vlog or put their life out there. They have an accountability to make sure that they really represent what they say they're representing, or do what they say they're doing, and trying not to contradict themselves. Because now it's out there in the public for everybody to scrutinize. So I really liked that point. But tying it back into the charity stuff, maybe there is a benefit to talking about it. And the only one, to finish off my story, I kind of went off on a sidetrack there, finish off my story, the only one I really like talking about is the one where my sister and we arranged a fundraising dinner to raise funds for an orphanage in Tamil Nadu, India. And the reason I really like talking about that one is because we hired Russell Peters. Now, I don't know if you guys know Russell Peters. He's really funny. I don't think he's as funny as he used to be, but whatever. He was really funny. This was just as he was, becoming really popular. And we contacted his agent, and his agent agreed for us to do it for really cheap. I can't remember what he charged us, like $1,000 or something like that, Canadian. And it was a buffet dinner with Russell Peters, and the reason I like talking about that one was not because I want to say, hey, look, this is what we did, because it was so funny. It was like way better than any of his stand-up stuff you've seen. He came in, and I mean, I don't know if I still have any pictures of it with me standing beside him, because you see the similarity. There's a little bit of a similarity of when I showed some people that picture. They're like, which one's Russell Peters? But my mom, when Russell Peters came in, he came in late. First of all, I was really worried. I said, what's going on? And then he shows up, and he looks at me and he says, okay, what's the crowd like? Am I allowed to swear? I'm like, oh my God, you haven't even prepared. You're late and you haven't even prepared anything. He's like, don't worry. But then my mom came over and he says, hey, you look like my son, saying that Russell Peters looks like me. And then he looks at me and he says, I look like that? It was really funny the way he did it. And just the jokes he told were so great. There was one, I remember, there was a guy in the audience, he had a turban on, and he yelled out halfway through Russell's act. And he yelled out, Russell, somebody get hurt bad. So he messed up the line. He's like, you're supposed to be Russell, somebody gonna get hurt real bad, right? And then some Russell stops, looks at him, and he says, you see, this is what happens when you let refugees tell your jokes. It was just, he was like on it, like interacting with the audience. It was a pretty small crowd, it wasn't big, so one of the most awesome experiences ever. All right, guys, before I continue, Baisha Zhou's on the left here. So there are people walking in. Oh, wow, yeah, it is somewhat locked off there. Hold on, let me see. I don't think you guys can see that. I'm gonna have to get some auxiliary video with my phone. And I'll put it in. So it does look like it's locked off, but there are people who are going in. Looks like there's a way to do it, but there's a security check. There's some police here. Oh yeah, there's people still walking in, so it's not really locked off. Anyways, I'm rambling on about a lot of unrelated stuff, but I'll tie it into the point. So the point is, I mentioned that I was trying to get some masks to donate to here, even though that's not the kind of thing I would usually talk about, but I was kind of hoping to hear from some of my subscribers, and if they had any ideas, if they knew any places where I could buy it, because that was my biggest problem. And I did get a bunch of people reaching out and trying to help, especially Gary from Vancouver. But what happened was there was a trickle-on effect. One of my subscribers, they went over to the channels of those kind of what I like to call anti-Chinese YouTubers, and they asked them. They said, "Hey, are you going to donate some of your Patreon funds to this thing that's going on?" And they basically blocked him. I was like, "Oh yeah, whatever. That's probably expected." Then what happened later was they released a video talking about how can you help China, and all of a sudden they're talking about charities and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like, was it by us talking about this, it pushed them to finally do something other than just saying Chinese people are coming over and buying up all of our masks on our shelves and all of this stuff, and kind of fueling that xenophobia that more and more news outlets are talking about now. And then was my video where I was kind of calling them out as xenophobic, racist, whatever the word you want to say, and I took that offline temporarily, and I'll explain to you guys why in another video. Did that force them to finally make the video where at the end of the video they said, guys, stop attacking Chinese in the street, stop doing this? Was that a catalyst for that? And it makes me think, these things that I'm uncomfortable to talk about, or I feel like it cheapens it, maybe there is some value in talking about it. So perhaps, last year I went to an event which was World Down Syndrome Day in March last year, and I joined it, and I walked around with the kids who had Down syndrome, and we were handing out flyers to people to raise awareness about Down syndrome. And I was planning on doing it this year, and also bringing some different craft sodas over for the kids to drink. And I didn't really post that anywhere when I did that, but I'm thinking of, if you guys are interested, of recording it and doing a video about it. And then maybe the trickle-on effect is that, well, there could be a couple of things. One, maybe it will inspire other people to do more things like this. And two, it will actually show to people that there is a huge community on the ground here doing great things. Those people who take part in that and who organize that, they're Chinese. And so these people, this is what really annoys me about these people who are on YouTube and they continually paint China as this unempathetic place that doesn't care about other people, that aren't socially responsible, these things are going on the ground. People are raising awareness for special needs kids, and they're doing all this stuff. And that's one of the reasons that I got so annoyed at these people who are in their little tiny bubbles, just constantly criticizing China and not actually doing anything themselves about it. And so here these people are doing all of this stuff, just being unfairly caught in the crossfire of these people trying to paint this as a backwards country. These are some of the things. I'm kind of giving you an insight into some of the things that really annoy me and drive me to go after some of these guys sometimes, even though it seems, and I also feel a little bit kind of awkward about it sometimes, but I think it's something that's got to be done. That's a topic I'm going to get back to later. Wow, this is a really long one, and it's not, a lot of it wasn't really coronavirus related. But I still did kind of expand on personalities and things like that, and scrutinize the people you're listening to, including me. If you think I have an agenda, then take everything I say with caution and look it up yourself. When I do post sources or articles or mention things like Kyle Bass and what he does and how he's in court for doing the exact same thing that could be driving him to fearmonger about coronavirus, look it up yourself. And of course, there's going to be people who look it up and they're going to be searching for individual little things that say, oh, well, look, no, maybe there's another way to interpret this. Fine. Like I said, I'm going to put this information out there and you guys can do whatever you want with it. And I know this video seems like I've spent a little bit too much time talking about the detractors, but I think it's important to address for even the people who, well, especially the people who are in the middle ground. But I do want to say that I want to send a special thanks to the people in my videos who are talking about being stuck here, cooped up in their homes, or being overseas and having loved ones in China, and saying they take comfort in some of the positives that I'm pointing out about things that are going on the ground. And it's guys like you that help kind of keep me trying to continue vlogging during this period of time as much as possible, because there really aren't enough people who are taking a more balanced look at this and not recognizing some of the optimistic data that does come out. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I've rambled on for way too long. And hopefully I'll go back to a slightly shorter video tomorrow and be a little bit more structured than this one. This was kind of just a drive around and a chat. So as usual, I always sign off with the same thing, and I'm feeling like, especially when I'm editing the video, I feel like Bob Barker from where he always signs off his game show with "Have your pet spayed or neutered." My tagline is "Stay safe, take all of the precautions you need," and I will see you in the next video, guys. Take care.